I am happy, so happy and honored to have you here today. I wanted to interview you for several years, and you interviewed me twice, and I never got a chance. So I'm extremely happy and super honored. For those of you who don't know Allan, you are missing so much, guys, because Allan is an amazing person who has been in spirituality, I can say all his life, right? Would that be correct? Basically,
Well, I wouldn't say all
what?
my life. I would say for the last 20 years,
Wow.
25 years.
Oh my God, for the last 25 years. And he's an author of this amazing book, Making Contact. And we talked about this book so many times. I know how much, oh my God, everything you poured into this book. What a big thing it is. And and
I have
also
another book actually I'm working on too, so that may have been the one we were talking about, but it's all good. Yes, yes, yes.
amazing, amazing. And also your YouTube channel has over 75,000 subscribers, and you have like
Yes.
more than 20 million views. That's incredible. That's amazing, guys. It's youtube.com/new realities. I highly
Mhm.
recommend that everybody checks it out. And Allan, okay, let's start from this. 25 years in spirituality. How did it start?
Or more. Maybe it was more than 20. I think it was the early 80s. What is this? Oh, maybe it's 40 years from 80. Yeah, 82. So it's actually 40. How did it start? Well, I came out of college looking for something to do, a job, all that, but also interested. I studied psychology there. I thought psychology was not answering the big questions. It,
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
there was more than just the mind. I started to hear about different spiritual teachings and gurus. Gurus were really big in the early
Who
80s
was
and through the
famous
60s.
back then? Who was the most famous spiritual
Well,
teacher in 80s?
Ram Dass wasn't really a guru, but he talked
Mhm.
about his guru. There was Sai Baba Satchidananda. There was Maharishi with the TM. That was big because the Beatles had studied with TM and Maharishi. So
Mhm.
there was a lot of talk about Eastern teachers, but I didn't want a guru. Wasn't interested in following. I liked the teachings. I read an
Mhm.
autobiography of a yogi,
Yeah.
Yogananda. He's still very popular, still a great
Mhm.
resource for people beginning on the path of what spirituality is.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I was just looking around. What that's out, and then someone told me about this channeling. And I said, "What's channeling?" And someone goes into trance. This other being comes through. I thought they were just crazy because, from a psychological point of view, if someone's talking as another personality, they're schizophrenic. Except this channel was quite eloquent, rational, poetic, and mystical.
Mhm.
So mostly schizophrenic personalities are pretty confused and not very practical, not very loving. I mean, occasionally maybe someone taps into that. But this was different because there was a whole shift in the body, a whole change in consciousness that went along. So I checked it out and it answered some of my questions.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I mean, aren't you a channel yourself of energy?
We can call it that. I'm channeling my higher self, I would say,
Right.
but yeah, I think we're all
So
channeling
people,
something bigger than our limited ego self, right?
exactly. Exactly. So sometimes we can tap into other frequencies and bring through other beings
Yeah.
of higher or lower consciousness. So that showed me there was something more than the physical body, that consciousness was not just a manifestation of brain tissue, but actually, and as I later investigated, the brain is a receiver of consciousness. It's like a
Mhm.
radio,
Mhm.
and it's picking up and sending signals, but our thoughts are translated through the neurology, but it doesn't originate there. It originates, I think, from someplace else. Our
Where do you think they originate from?
I think it originates from the source, right? I think it goes
Mhm.
back to the what would I call it? Something beyond time and space that we're connected to. So I think it's bigger than us. It's bigger than the small-minded people we are. So yeah, we're a part of a great network of consciousness. So we are part of something much bigger than the limited personality.
Do you talk about
So
that in your book?
yes, because the whole idea behind ETs, extraterrestrial, and making contact is what are we making contact with? We're
Mhm.
making contact with ourselves, an extension of ourselves. We're not separate from the cosmos. That's a good question. We are part of the infinite network of creation, which is connected through this thing called mind or greater mind or thoughts or basically consciousness. So that's what connects us to beings. That's what connects us together. That's what connects all of us is the conscious field. And that doesn't originate in the brain. It's because it's like opening a radio. You're not going to find anyone inside that head of yours. It's a frequency, and each of us are connected to a specific frequency that is our soul signature. And then the soul generates thoughts that are used by the hardware to communicate and record experience. So
Mhm.
that's my philosophy. And that probably happens to beings no matter what planet or dimension they're on. That there's a receiver, may not be a brain type thing, but there's a receiver of frequencies from
Mhm.
a source that is the origins of that being that is beyond time and space. So we think we live in time space, but we're really not. We are beyond time space. Who we really are is beyond this limited 3D, but we show up here because this has been our conditioned perception. But of course,
Mhm.
as you evolve, like you yourself, Nina, you perceive other realities, other dimensions, other parts of your multidimensional being. And that's really what this book is about. It's about making contact with ourselves,
Mhm.
other beings, the earth, and most importantly, each other from a higher dimensional point of view. So I see,
Amazing.
I know that you're tapped into something higher. I can see from your expression and understanding that whatever I'm saying is connected to because we're on a frequency that we can connect together on.
Totally,
And
yeah. But tell me, did you yourself ever have any contact with extraterrestrial life, like directly?
I think I have, yes, in
Can you
my
tell
book.
us
I know.
about that?
Yeah, get a copy of my book. It's on Amazon. You can
Okay,
order that, and
sure,
um,
absolutely.
but yes, I think as a child, I would have lots of contact. I mean, I would see beings showing up at the window. Um, I would have dreams where I would meet these beings. I
Mhm.
think I had one experience where I was driving cross country and was, I don't want to say the word abducted because that's such a negative word. I would say contacted directly, but
Mhm.
it's their frequencies are so different than ours. It's hard to be lucid in this level of reality
Mhm.
when you meet those other beings. So I have vague memories of that. I think
Mhm.
I was definitely upgraded to expand my conscious mind because of a contact experience or several. So
Mhm.
I have no doubt that there's something out there. I've seen ships in the sky, absolutely. I've seen lots of things coming and going. I've had out of body experiences where I never met other beings, but I sense these beings around, and the the medium of communication is consciousness. It's the field. So
Mhm.
once we start to drop away from the personality, we start to pick up other levels of thought and frequency, and that's what we're tapping into. So
Mhm.
yes.
And for you, Alan, for you, what would you say is the most important message this contact, this communication in general brings to the world, or maybe brings to you personally? Let's start with that.
Well, both.
What is it
First, if there
about?
is, Yeah. If there are beings out there, where that means we're not a freak of nature. Science tells us life is an accident and that we might be all alone here in this vast, cold, moving universe. But that why would we, if we're like on a little island, if we see islands in the distance, why would we not think there's other inhabitants there?
Mhm.
So for me, knowing that we're not a freak of nature, maybe there's a purpose to our existence. Maybe we come from the consciousness field, if you want to call that the source or spirit, whatever. I think I like the consciousness field because it doesn't involve a religious thing. It just
Mhm.
involves who we already are. We're
Mhm.
already conscious, right? You're conscious of yourself. I'm conscious. Everyone watching is aware of awareness, So I mean, animals are aware, but are they aware that they're aware? So
Mhm.
that's what we call sentient beings, those beings who know that they're aware of awareness. And why would we be the only ones in existence that have
Mhm.
that? We're not that evolved. We're only 2% different than the apes, and not as smart as dolphins and whales. So think I think it's ridiculous to think we're all alone.
Do
So
you think, where do you think this desire to know that we are not alone is coming from? Because, for example, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here a little bit.
yes,
They say that some logical people say that we invented religion in order to, right, to feel that there is somebody who we
right.
can give our kind of like responsibilities to, our like power to, and we need an authority because we didn't find authority within ourselves. Here,
Mm.
when we see some people maybe looking for the contact with other beings in order to not feel alone, could that not be also coming
Mhm.
from this, I don't know how to even word it properly,
Yeah, yeah, that psychological need, of course.
this
I think that's what you're
desire to
saying.
not be alone and to
Right,
feel that we are not
right.
alone, basically.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good question. You're a good interviewer, very intelligent
That's
question.
my first interview right now, so
Oh, well,
forgive
you're
me for
doing
all the, yeah.
no, don't forgive you. You're doing excellent and they're very intelligent questions. And I think that is a great question. So, yes, we've invented religion and God to make us feel we're not alone, but we've also invented the idea that we are alone. That's
So
another invention.
true. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it.
So,
So true.
what's the reality? I look at what I've seen, what the government right now is coming out with. The government is saying, for sure, you could read it in the papers, New York Times, December 16th, 2017, New York Times, July 23rd, 2020. There's another. It's out all over the media that we're not alone. Something's in their sky. Something is out there, and it's not U.S., not Chinese, not Russian, not anything. What the government says, not anything from this planet, or they really say not made by any countries. They don't quite say it's alien. So there's something out there. That's just the facts. What
Mhm.
it is, where they're from, why they're here, that's still up for debate. But let's just establish the fact. And it's really hot right now. And that's why my book has become so popular, because what's really going on? It came out right when the government put out a report last year called the Preliminary Assessment for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Do you know
Mhm.
that they've changed the name from UFOs to UAP?
Oh,
UFO
I
was
didn't know.
unidentified flying object.
Mhm.
But the government says, and this is in their reports, we're not just talking about objects, we're talking about the effects on the viewer. There's sometimes negative effects, headaches, burn marks, fatigue, nausea, or there's positive effects, more telepathy, more creativity, more increased intelligence, more increased awareness. So there's two sides to this coin of seeing,
Mhm.
and this is documented in what's called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program documents, or what's called ATIP. And
Mhm.
so it's in there, the positive, well, mostly the negative effects, but there does say it has something to do with our cognitive environment, which
Mhm.
means it, I think it means it distorts our field. So this is not out of a need to pretend we're not alone. This is established fact. So I'm going on that. And
Mhm.
then I'm looking at what researchers in the field. So this book may be my book because I edited it and wrote a chapter, but this is a compilation, this book. So I
Mhm.
have the best minds in the field. People have been looking at this situation, or as it's called now, phenomena. It's called
Mhm.
the phenomena. So it's
Mhm.
not called UFOs, it's not called flying saucers, it's called unidentified aerial phenomena or just the phenomena. So
Mhm.
I'm talking to people who've researched the phenomena for 40 years.
Mhm.
And if it was just a dead end, if it was just a fabrication, these are very intelligent people.
Mhm.
I think they would get onto the fact that, well, there's no there, there's no substance. But you know what? The more intelligent people are not only investigate, they get pulled in because this is the most interesting, mind blowing, intellectually challenging um, subject that any of us can pursue. I think so. I mean, yes,
Mhm.
there's science and there's math, but what's more challenging than and exciting to realize that maybe we're not alone, that maybe there's keys here for our biological and technological evolution because we need it now. And
Mhm.
I think the government definitely has those secrets. We need to know how to get out of this very dangerous position we find ourselves in as humanity. And perhaps we are getting contacted in order to help us get out of the ecological, climate change, whatever's going on, something's going on. Look what we've just been through the last 2 or 3 years,
Oh
two and a
yeah.
half years.
Yeah.
So
Do you
that's
think,
prepared us.
people are more ready to respond, to receive now than ever before? Yeah.
Yes, because normality has been wiped off the board. There
Yeah.
is no normal life anymore. People have had to leave their jobs, their homes, their
Mhm.
families sometimes. So what we thought was normal and just moving along and like everything, let's just keep making more and more money. That's all shifted. That's all. So now we're prepared for something completely different because we've just had something completely different. And what these revelations from the government have coincided with the situation we've been going through. So it's interesting they've took that time to maybe wait for people to look for some other possibilities about the nature of reality. So yes, good point, Nina. Good point. You're
They also
absolutely right.
say that, the saying that a student is ready, when a student is ready, teacher shows up. Could we say maybe that when humanity is ready, phenomena shows up?
That's, oh, I'm going to make a note of that. Yes, that's a really good
Mhm.
point. I also like to say when the student is ready, the teacher leaves. So that's another thing.
Yeah,
But
that's the
no,
next step already, right?
that is, but you're right. I think you're right. Somehow these things are showing up in much greater numbers. And I'm not saying I know what these things are. I
Mhm.
just know from the documentation, from government documentation, I'm just fixing my hair there, it looks a little straggly. From government documentations, from private industries, from people I just am associated with, there's a huge amount of increased sightings around the world. I just talked to a Chinese UFO investigator, a Japanese, a Korean, a South American, there's European, Italian, French, English. It's everywhere. There's something going on. on this planet that is so shocking and so overwhelming that we have to wake up to a deeper sense of who we are in relationship to that. And that's what my book is about. Not where are these beings from. Of course, people have all sorts of ideas, but we don't know.
Mhm.
Because if they're from, people say, oh, yeah, they're from the Pleiades or Syrian or I mean, yeah, maybe, but I don't want to make that claim because mm, I think that's stepping beyond where we are now. First, we have to establish that there's something here. Then we have to realize how we are going to have to change in order to meet these beings. What is it? You know, we have to get over our prejudice, our hatred, our anger, our violence, our wars. You know, I
Mhm.
think it's war. I mean, if we're a warlike, civilization, which we have been on every continent, every country, every race,
Yeah.
war has been the popular pastime of humans.
Mhm.
Why would anyone want to come and visit us?
Mhm.
So if we can get beyond that, and we haven't, maybe there's been 100 years of peace in the last 5,000 years.
Mhm.
So we have to mature, we have to grow up, we have to clean up our planet, we have to clean up our mind, we have to, yeah, mature to
Mhm.
be a species that will meet other species. I mean, just look what happens in countries. And anyway, you see the idea. We're a
Yeah,
mess.
yeah,
We have,
yeah. I would add to that that we need to be a vibrational match in order for us to even
yes,
have a chance to meet. Even talking from the vibrational perspective, we know this law of the universe. If we are so not in resonance with something, it cannot be close. As you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, you said that they are so different. They have such a different frequency. They are something beyond our capacity to comprehend, feel
yes.
vibrationally too. So we need to raise our vibration to match a little bit more in order to even be able to have any contact
Yeah,
with it.
that's exactly right. That's why, war is a very low vibration, right?
Right. Yes.
So that's part of raising our vibration. Stop being violent, be harmonious. I mean, I guess that's what I alluded to, but I was also just talking about the physical. But that's a really good point because they exist at a different vibration, and we need
Mhm.
to exist at and we have the capacity. Look at you. You've raised your vibration. Now you're a great teacher of vibration to help people do that. So you're one of the leaders in this field, and your work is a vibrational teaching. So you're absolutely, thank you for bringing that point in. No, it's good. That was a really important point because we want to attract the higher beings. If we're at a lower frequency, first of all, no one wants to play with us, and we don't want to attract lower vibrational beings. So each of us, has to make contact with that vibration inside of ourselves. Yes.
Yeah, amazing. You know, it reminds me of a dream that I had when I was around 18 or 19 years old, and I wasn't into spirituality yet at all, but I had a dream which you can say maybe could have been a so-called contact, doesn't matter how we call it, but in my dream, you know, one of those dreams that are super real and you wake up transformed. And in
Mm.
that dream, I had a contact. I saw an like a plate in the sky that was approaching me, and I felt them. I felt the vibration in my dream. I sensed what it feels like, and I remember I got so terrified of the unknown vibration. I
Mm.
was so not in a match with who I was then. The
Yeah.
unknownness of that made me run away, and I was waking up from that dream with a voice inside my head. You see how you run away? How can we show up? If you can't handle that, nobody can either. So that's why you can see us. That was my
Well,
dream.
you know what, Nina? I have good news and bad news. That was not a dream. That was not a dream. That was a visitation. And I think, just my guess is that they were preparing you vibrationally for the work that you're doing now. So it may have seemed that the conscious mind was afraid, and And why are we afraid anyway? What were you afraid of? Because lots of people have that reaction.
It was so unlike me. That was what I was afraid of. Difference, the difference,
Right. But
unknown vibration. Yeah,
that's the practice. That is exactly the point. That is a really good point. It is so unlike us.
right.
So they're not going to, that's why people have trauma and react because they're so unlike us vibrationally. And
Mhm.
people equate that with negative and bad and evil. But no, they're not like anything we're used to.
Yeah,
And we got to get used to it. That's the thing. That's the preparation. We get used to, and maybe you're more used to it now. So I think after this conversation, they're going to come back. I'm serious.
yeah.
And you have to prepare yourself and everyone listening not to react to what is so different. We react to people that look different, but imagine a vibration that is so unfamiliar that it's shocking, but it's not bad. It's
Mhm.
actually helping us become more of ourselves because
Expand
this,
into something that
yeah,
we have not been before, into something
because
different, bigger.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, because our view of ourselves is very limited. Yes,
exactly.
some spiritual masters have a more expanded view, but you can't show up like talking about what you do to a crowd of people watching football or whatever and say, "Oh, I'm a spiritual teacher." I have this. They wouldn't know what to do with you.
Right.
So, but you do talk to people who do know what to do with you. You do talk to people who say, "Oh yes, thank you, Nina. You're helping me understand who I am." And so we just keep have to expand into the unknown because that's that's where our future is in vibrational frequency shifting. That's exactly why we're here or
Mhm.
they're here to help us because we've been living in this lower realm. So yeah, I think that planted a seed in you. You may not have been conscious of it, but something called them into you because you were yearning for a different sort of situation in your life. And there it showed up and it was too much, but you got it eventually. So that's why we're having this conversation today because you're part of the welcoming committee because that's the equation with spirituality. It's like it's not separate from spirituality, this phenomena.
Mhm.
It's totally connected to our spiritual evolution because of what you just said, the frequency evolution.
Mhm.
So,
Tell me, Alan, how do you think spirituality actually evolved over the last 40 years since you embarked on this journey? Do you feel the difference?
well, it's always an individual journey, but the
Mhm.
difference is that it's become more publicly known, accepted. Conversations are happening about, of course, within certain circles that has always happened, but
Mhm.
it was always more of a secret, more of an in crowd. Now it's at least for
Mainstream?
the people I know. Mainstream, yes, it is mainstream. And in the 80s, it was predicted it would be. But now, we are having a global awakening. So people are having, oh, I had this Kundalini experience, like what's happening to me? People going to India, meditation, yoga, health food. This is the new times we live in. And that's been the process for the last 40 or since the 1960s, the
Since
age of
60s.
Aquarius.
Yeah.
We are moving into the age of Aquarius. And
Mhm.
this is our time now. And of course, it started in the 1890s with the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Krishnamurti, Alex Bailey. So there was the 1890s and the 1920s. And then, as we kind of went a little bit into the dark ages in the 50s, but the UFO phenomena really emerged out of the 50s, 47 Roswell into the 50s, and spirituality in the early 60s. Really, the age of Aquarius is a kind of doorway to other realities. And that's what we've And that's what that song, It's the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius from the play Hair in the 1960s, that wasn't just a musical, that was a prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Then that means we're moving out of the old Piscean age, which was beautiful in its own way, but it had its limitations in thought form, beliefs, dogma,
Yeah.
ritual, you know. And the Aquarian, if you look at the characteristics of Aquarius, it is a more independence, free thinking, creativity, arts, technology. This is the Aquarian age, and that's just a name for something that is an evolution. So, culture and consciousness always evolving,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's a good thing. And there's dips, and ups and downs. So I think we're just getting rid of the last of the old frequencies.
Nice.
So,
So interesting. And
yeah.
it very much correlates with what I'm actually teaching, which feels
Tell
like,
me.
oh,
Tell me what
no,
you're
no, no.
teaching.
This is your interview, Alan. You're gonna ask me all the questions in our next interview, and I'll tell you
Okay.
everything. But yeah, it's
Okay.
all about the new step in spirituality. Everything that was new once becomes old. So new age becomes old age. And we are actually transitioning to something even more coherent, something bigger, something even more free. And it's an interesting topic to discuss in the next
Well,
interview.
don't you think the ETs or whatever they are part of that bigger? I mean, we've
Oh,
kind of.
yeah, everything is. The point of a new spirituality is that everything is included. Nothing is
Mhm.
excluded, and
Right.
nothing
It's a
is
bigger thing. Yeah.
kind of separate, but everything will be included and kind of almost absorbed. And we will become that big consciousness that includes everything in itself, everything in it.
Yeah, more of the universe, more of it's again that unknown. It's again that frequency that is so foreign to
Mhm.
so many people that it is shocking. It will be shocking. It's like I
Yeah.
call it horse and buggy thinking. The horse and buggy, like the
Oh,
cars came along and
uh-huh.
everyone said, no, I'm not
Yeah.
getting rid of my horse for a, a machine that you have to fill up. And
Yeah.
so it's like that. But eventually it will be a planetary consciousness.
Right. Oh, amazing, amazing. And tell me, what is your plan to actually, what is your plan in terms of extraterrestrial message, I would say? You
Well,
said
I
your
don't know
new
if
book
I
is
have.
coming. What is your new book about?
Well, my new book is exactly what we were talking about. And it's what you brought up, the fear, going into the fear of what's different
Mm,
and why and how we have to get over that little stumbling block and really to start to make contact because that's in the way. Fear of the unknown has
mm-hmm,
kept people stuck, in relationships and jobs and countries and then it's always the explorer, the artist, the creator
mm-hmm.
going into something unknown that has evolved human civilization, consciousness, people, and their own lives because they dared to be something more, something different. They went into the unknown. You know, one of the teachers and channels that I saw, he says, our job here is to make known the unknown,
Oh, beautiful.
which means that, right? Which
Yeah.
means that that fear that we all have of something we don't know has to be overcome. And that's the beginning of contact. Of course, we're contacting the greater part of our minds, but there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of meditations that people can do. There's something called Close Encounter 5 or CE5 meditations where you're out and you're shifting your frequency. This is exactly right. You're shifting your frequency, Nina, and the group's frequency and the collective mind. And I've done this, and things show up. They do show up. There is a response to frequency, and they're waiting for that. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
They're
What do you
waiting
think
for
fear
the
is, in your
what's
opinion?
that?
What do you think fear is? What is
What do
fear
I
to
think?
you? Yeah.
What I think fear, fear is always about survival.
Mhm.
So people are comfortable in their discomfort, and because at least they know their survival is secure. So, but of course, nothing ever happens. Where would the planet be if the our great ancestors didn't say, well, what's over that hill? I mean, I have a really nice little cave here, but what's on the other side of that mountain, and what's on the other side of that ocean? So, um, fear keeps us safe, but adventure keeps us alive. So that's what I think.
That's a
You know,
beautiful
so
quote. That's a beautiful quote.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have to overcome that, and you know, look at children, right? They're always grabbing something new, and look at old people. They're afraid to touch something new. So it's like
Mm.
we need to be like children and be fearless. But
Mm.
I mean, a lot. We have to get over the brainwashing, the conditioning. Anyway, um, and the conditioning has kept us stuck. The media keeps us in fear. So there's all that going on, and it takes each individual to say, okay, I'm going to stretch, reach out into something unknown.
Mm.
And sometimes, most of the time, it's great. Sometimes, it's not, but most of the time, it's an evolution. So
Mhm.
thank you. I should go soon, but I
Yes,
really
yes.
appreciate your
Last
question.
question. Last question. Tell me, maybe. Let me see. What could be the last question? Um, Tell us
No, I'll tell.
what's your plan? What's your like mission? What's your plan? What are you going to do? What your projects are going to be? Maybe something about your projects and how we can
Yeah, my project.
connect.
Thank you for that question. My project is really about what is the best way to explore the unknown. Yeah, UFOs are one thing, but I think creativity. I
Mhm.
think being the artist. Like when you sit down, if you're a painter and you don't have an idea of what you're going to do, something comes. If you're a songwriter, you're writing something that just comes into you. In a sense, we're channeling. So I'm looking at the process of creativity. Where's that come from? And I think that's the future of humanity. When we just imagine when we have free energy, when everyone has enough food to eat and housing. I mean, that's a bit idealistic, but it's possible. We have that technology right now. What do we do then? Do we just sit around and like we could, but we're here to do something. We're here to create because we're here to. My spiritual philosophy is to emulate creation. So we incarnate to be creators. That's why
Mhm.
we've come. Yeah, it's great to have families and children and jobs, but the true purpose of the incarnational experience is to expand the unknown through our own creative projects, whatever they may be.
Wow.
Talking,
Beautiful,
teaching,
beautiful. Yeah.
dancing. And then, you know why we do that? Because we can experience more of the feeling sense of our humanity. And that's why we've incarnated here. Not to complete karma, not to do that, not to leave, but to enjoy the embodiment of the being and create more unknown. So
Couldn't
that's
agree
my.
more. Amazing. Thank you so much, Alan. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure. It was a bit short, but
I know. We'll
nevertheless,
do more.
a big
But let's
pleasure.
do a part two.
Let's
And
do
I
a part
really
two.
enjoyed this.
I
You
love
know
that.
why I enjoyed it? I was just going to say I enjoyed it because of your intelligent reception. I get you're getting everything I'm saying, and you're giving something back, and your questions are coming from a real, genuine place. So I
Thank you.
appreciate
And
you
thank
know.
you so much for taking your time and interacting with us.